Donald Trump's return to the presidency ushers in a new era for U.S. engagement in the Indo-Pacific, with policies likely to reshape regional dynamics and redefine America's strategic priorities. His administration's approach will center on countering China's growing influence, strengthening military capabilities, and pushing allies to take on greater responsibility. These changes will have far-reaching implications, not only for the balance of power in Asia but also for the future of U.S. alliances and partnerships. Donald Trump's inauguration as president signals the start of a new chapter in U.S. policy toward Asia, particularly in its approach to China and regional allies. With a focus on reasserting American strength, his administration is likely to emphasize economic decoupling, military modernization, and alliance burden sharing in the Indo-Pacific. This shift could redefine the strategic balance in the region and intensify competition with Beijing. Newly appointed U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the United States under President Donald Trump remain committed to the Philippines' defense, as tensions simmer with Beijing in the South China Sea. In a call with his Philippine counterpart Enrique Manalo, Rubio underscored the United States' ironclad commitments to the Philippines under the two nations' mutual defense treaty. 74 years after its signing, the alliance continues to thrive in the ever-evolving security environment that surrounds the Philippines. The U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty evolved into the 1998 Visiting Forces Agreement, VFA, and the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA. An irreplaceable U.S. ally for 7 decades, the Philippines has long been at the forefront of preserving the free and open regional order in Southeast Asia and the greater Indo-Pacific region. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the Republic of the Philippines and the United States of America, signed in 1951, serves as a foundation for the close security cooperation between the two countries. The VFA provides the legal basis and status protections for U.S. military and Department of Defense civilian personnel in the Philippines on official business, while EDCA authorizes U.S. forces to access of agreed locations in the Philippines on a rotational basis for security cooperation exercises, joint and combined military training activities, and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief activities. The Philippines-U.S. Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, a deal widely seen as an effort to counter China's strong presence in the West Philippine Sea. The agreement gives the U.S. military access to Philippine bases for training as well as for humanitarian and disaster relief activities. Manila and Washington initially identified 5 sites for the agreement, namely Cesar Basa Air Base in Pampanga, Fort Magsaysay Military Reservation, Lumbia Air Base, Antonio Bautista Air Base, and Mactan Benito Ebuan Air Base. 4 new additional EDCA locations was approved last year, which includes the completed military runway in Balabac, Palawan, along with Naval Base Camilo Osayas and La Lo Airport located in Cagayan, and Camp Melchor de la Cruz in Gamu, Isabela. The shifting dynamics of the Indo-Pacific under Trump's presidency require a nuanced understanding of the challenges and opportunities ahead. Political experts offer critical perspectives on how these challenges can be addressed. Key issues such as reforming the defense acquisition process to address inefficiencies and ensure military readiness, recalibrating alliances to strengthen cooperation with partners like Philippines, South Korea, and Japan, and managing the balance of power with China through strategic innovation and engagement. As the U.S. transitions from Joe Biden's presidency, changes in American foreign policy can be expected. Despite this, the Philippines' interests remain the same: to preserve national security, promote economic security, and protect overseas Filipinos. Securing these interests will depend on the level of the domestic push to widen international partnerships and deepen the alliance with the United States. Assuming domestic configurations align in the Philippines with the United States' strategic interests, a convergence can be expected in both countries' policies toward China. This scenario is in keeping with the raison d'etre of alliances, that is, that allies are drawn closer by a common threat, and such a relationship will exist if the threat remains. The Philippines has generally provided the U.S. with multiple concessions driven by strategic necessity. Under the Marcos Jr. administration, the number of Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA sites has been expanded from 5 to 9. These additional sites facilitate greater access for U.S. military personnel at crucial military bases across the country. Furthermore, joint military exercises between the U.S. and the Philippines are regularly conducted to enhance coordination between the two nations' armed forces. This was augmented by the U.S. deployment of the Typhoon missile system in the Philippines, with discussions about keeping it stationed indefinitely. China vehemently expressed strong opposition to the deployment of U.S. weapons to the Philippines, perceiving it as a threat. Recently, tensions further escalated with China's deployment of PLA Navy vessels against the Philippine Coast Guard in the vicinity of Bajo de Masinloc. In light of the territorial dispute, the different pillars of U.S.-Philippine security cooperation, which include the Mutual Defense Treaty, MDT, Enhanced Defense Cooperative Agreement EDCA, and the Balakatan exercises, will possibly outlast any change in leaders both in the Philippines and the U.S. The Philippines holds a critically important position for the U.S. in advancing its objectives within the Indo-Pacific region, particularly in curtailing China's influence. With lesser economic influence and military power, the same thing in the rest of the Indo-Pacific, outside help from the international community is much needed to secure the peace and stability in the region. The Mutual Defense Treaty will give access to the United States to increase its military presence in the region, gaining additional control over 4 more sites and strengthening the Southeast Asian nation's role as a key strategic partner for Washington in the event of a conflict with China over Taiwan. The deal comes as Washington has tried to reaffirm its influence in the region amid a broader effort to counter Chinese aggression, reinforcing partnerships with strategic allies and bolstering relations that have soured in recent years. The Philippines' commitment to diplomacy, coupled with its increasing naval capabilities, signals that the country is prepared to defend its territorial rights in the face of Chinese aggression. However, as tensions continue to rise, it is crucial that the international community supports Manila in its efforts to ensure peace and stability in the region. The international community must not be swayed by China's narrative of events in the South China Sea. As a responsible member of the global community, the Philippines will continue to rely on diplomatic channels and multilateral mechanisms to resolve disputes, as it has consistently done. However, it is crucial that regional and global powers reaffirm their support for the rule of law and the 2016 arbitral ruling, which remains the cornerstone of legal claims in the South China Sea. The Philippines' path forward is clear: to continue asserting its rights under international law, to resist China's coercive tactics, and to maintain a presence in contested waters. The international community must stand with the Philippines as it navigates these turbulent waters, ensuring that peace, stability, and the rule of law prevail in the region. China's accusation that the Philippines is seeking to involve the United States and other external powers in the South China Sea dispute is a weak attempt to shift the focus away from its own aggressive actions. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the United States is a legitimate security arrangement designed to protect the Philippines from external aggression. It is not, as China suggests, a tool for land grabbing or provocation. The Philippines, like any sovereign nation, has the right to seek international support when its territorial integrity is threatened. The involvement of the United States and other allies is aimed at upholding international law, promoting stability, and ensuring that the South China Sea remains a free and open maritime corridor. The deployment of U.S. personnel and weapons to the Philippines serves not only to deter China's expansionism but also to prepare for eventualities in Taiwan. Given its geographical proximity, the Philippines has the potential to act as a staging ground or operational outpost for the U.S. in the event of a conflict between Beijing and Taipei. Thus, it would be quite challenging for Marcos Jr. to adjust his current approach to the South China Sea, which is closely linked with U.S. strategy toward China. The Philippines does not clearly state in official documents that it is following the U.S. strategy against China. However, the Philippines' actions support the first island chain strategy that favors the U.S. and possibly limits China's maritime routes. The sovereignty of the Philippines was the first ASEAN member to be directly affected by China's military expansion in the South China Sea. As part of Manila's defensive posture with the support of Washington against Beijing's aggressive actions in its sovereign waters in West Philippine Sea. The United States and the Philippines will develop new military facilities and enhanced existing bases to support their growing military operation as China continue to challenge the world-based order. With these, new airports and seaports will be developed across the archipelago, strategically located near the hotly contested waters of the West Philippine Sea and Taiwan Strait. Funded under the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, a plan to counter China throughout the Indo-Pacific through the construction of infrastructure and investment into regional partners. Although many countries in the Indo-Pacific region receive U.S. military assistance, the Philippines receives the most in Southeast Asia. From 2015 to 2022, Manila received more than $1.2 billion worth of aircraft, armored vehicles, small arms, equipment and training, $475 million of it in aid. The Philippines' inclusion in the proposed $8.1 billion aid package of the United States House of Representatives would help strengthen the country's defense capabilities, especially amid escalating tensions in the West Philippine Sea. The United States and the Philippines will also develop new military facilities and enhanced existing bases to support their growing military operation as China continue to challenge the world-based order. With this, new airports and seaports will be developed across the archipelago, strategically located near the hotly contested waters of the West Philippine Sea and Taiwan Strait. While this construction is permitted under EDCA, it is funded under the Pentagon's Pacific Deterrence Initiative, PDI. With China identified as the pacing threat, the PDI aims to strengthen regional deterrence through investments in capabilities, concepts and infrastructure. For fiscal year 2024, the Pentagon requested $9.1 billion for PDI. Last year, the Philippines increased the number of bases the U.S. could access under EDCA from 5 to 9. The Philippines Department of National Defense has stated these future sites will aid in the country's military modernization program, specifically through U.S.-funded facilities such as runway, communication, fueling and other infrastructure. In November, the two countries officially completed a runway renovation and extension at Basa. As a result of the project, larger logistical aircraft can now operate from the EDCA site. Basa has received the most PDI funds to date, approximately $66 million of the $82 million earmarked for EDCA investments. Amidst the tensions generated by China's development of artificial islands in the South China Sea, the Armed Forces of the Philippines AFP plan to rehabilitate the air and naval facilities in Subic Bay Freeport, in the central west part of the mainland island of Luzon. Previously, the site of the U.S. Naval Air Station in Kubi Point, in Subic Bay International Airport was established, following the broader American military withdrawal from the Philippines in the 1990s. Since then, both Philippine and American military forces have been returning to the area to facilitate resupply, refuel and repair vessels. Subic's port facilities also support the delivery of U.S. military equipment into the Philippines during bilateral exercises. The Philippines is also developing an airport on an island it occupies in the West Philippine Sea, as the Southeast Asian nation asserts its claims in the disputed waters amid lingering tensions with Beijing. A military runway on the island of Balabac in Palawan province near the South China Sea is also nearing completion. The Philippine government announced that the construction of the military runway on Balabac Island in the province of Palawan, one of the key locations of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, between the Philippines and the U.S., is now in its final stage. Balabac hosts one of the country's most strategic naval station of the Philippine Navy westernmost territory, and a side that it will host the United States military, under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. Another military airbase project funded by the United States in the Philippines is the Phase 2 of the redevelopment of Basa Air Base in central Luzon. The Pentagon awarded a $32 million contract to upgrade an airfield in the Philippines as part of a broader U.S. program to upgrade and improve Manila's military bases. Funded under the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, a plan to counter China throughout the Indo-Pacific through the construction of infrastructure and investment into regional partners. Basa Air Base is set to receive a 625,000 square foot parking apron capable of hosting up to 20 aircraft. Reports have indicated that the U.S. may consider building a civilian port on the Batanes Islands. The Batanes region is a cluster of atolls and islets along the strategic Luzon Strait, a maritime passage and a vital conduit for undersea fiber optic cables. Unfortunately, it's also a crossing point for the Chinese Navy when they hold large-scale drills to intimidate Taiwan. In the event of open hostilities between China and Taiwan, there's no doubt large naval forces will either try to travel or even launch combat operations in and around the Luzon Strait. The Southeast Asian archipelago, Taiwan's neighbor to the south, is an important part of U.S. strategy in Asia, and would be an indispensable staging point for the military to aid Taipei in the event of a Chinese attack, and a strategic location to deter China in its hegemonic ambition in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippines archipelago is also a major part of the first island chain, which refers to the first chain of major Pacific archipelagos out from the East Asian continental mainland coast. Currently, the first island chain is the most effective point to counter any Chinese invasion and expanding influence. The Mutual Defense Treaty will give access to the United States to increase its military presence in the region, gaining additional control over 4 more sites and strengthening the Southeast Asian nation's role as a key strategic partner for Washington in the event of a conflict with China over Taiwan and of the South China Sea. The deal comes as Washington has tried to reaffirm its influence in the region amid a broader effort to counter Chinese aggression, reinforcing partnerships with strategic allies and bolstering relations that have soured in recent years. Among the 5 treaty allies that the United States has in Asia, the Philippines and Japan are the most geographically close to Taiwan, with the Philippines' northernmost inhabited island of Itbayat just 93 miles away. Having increased U.S. access in northern Luzon, the closest Philippine island to Taiwan, really ensured that the Philippines and the U.S. alliance are going to have a front and center role in Northeast Asian security and deterrence.